The next question is question 40 has been grouped with question 74, which is in the name of Deputy Clare Daly. So, Deputy Smith, you have 30 seconds to introduce it.
Thank you very much. So, to ask the Minister of Defence if the Medical Service of the Defence Forces is continuing to prescribe the anti-malaria drug lariam for members of the Defence Force, and if you could make a statement on the matter.
15.
I propose to take questions 40 and 74 together in the name of Niamh Smith and Clare Daly. Malaria is a serious disease that killed approximately 438,000 people in 2015, with 90% of deaths occurring in sub-Saharan Africa. As reported by the World Health Organization, it is a serious threat to any military force operating in the area. Anti-malarial medications, including lariam, remain in the formulary of medications prescribed by the Medical Corps for Defence Forces personnel and appropriate overseas missions. This is to ensure that our military personnel can have effective protection from the very serious risks posed by malaria. Significant precautions are taken by the Irish Defence Forces medical officers in assessing the medical suitability of members of the Defence Forces to take any of the anti-malarial medications. It is the policy of the Irish Defence Forces that personnel are individually screened for fitness for service overseas and medically suitable. The objective is to ensure that our military personnel can have effective protection from very serious risks posed by malaria. The health and welfare of the Defence Forces are a priority for me. The choice of medication for overseas deployment, including the use of lariam, is a medical decision made by the medical officers in the Defence Forces, having regard to the specific circumstances of the mission and the individual member of the Irish Defence Forces. I am advised that the Defence Forces medical policy on the use of malaria chemoprophylaxis, including the use of lariam, is in line with United Nations and World Health Organization guidelines.
Known, as you know, for some time that the use of the drug has and does cause serious problems for the members of our Defence Forces. There have been views expressed by both. These are the views that have been expressed to us both by the current and retired members of the Defence Forces. Serious concerns have been raised for many years of the use of lariam as an anti-malaria drug for members of the Defence Forces serving in Africa and in other areas where malaria is a problem. There has been serious indications that the drug can cause the risk of mental health problems, and as we know, it's a huge issue. Last year, the British Ministry of Defence acknowledged that 1,000 ex-servicemen and women are suffering severe psychiatric and mental health problems as a result of being prescribed lariam. Similarly, in 2013, the RTE primetime investigation suggested that there are 3 to 5 times increased risk of suicide among the Defence Forces personnel who have been prescribed the drug.
I'll let you in again in a minute. Deputy Daly.
Minister, despite your statements, you're actually not in line with anything. You're substantially out of step with best international practice in this regard by continuing to prescribe this dangerous and discontinued drug as your first line of defence in terms of anti-malaria vaccinations and assistance, and you're just teeing up the state for actually massive payouts and damages in the future. I think the case for removing lariam is probably ironclad at this stage. Other jurisdictions have moved in that direction and you're lagging behind. Your response on the 2nd of May seemed to indicate that because we had a stockpile of the drug, well sure, look, we might as well use it and let it run out. That is completely wrong for the members of the force. It's completely out of sync with the majority of deputies in this House who have signed a motion to say this drug should be discontinued. And I'd ask you to rethink a step that's out of thinking with this House and best international practice.
Minister.
Well, let me state, as I stated in my original reply, that I am advised by the Defence Forces medical policy on the use of malaria chemoprophylaxis is in line with the United Nations and World Health Organization guidelines. I have taken the views specifically by Deputy Daly and by Deputy Smith, on a number of occasions. But I have been informed by the management in the Defence Force organisation that lariam is the most appropriate form of medication for the missions that we are participating in Mali and sub-Saharan Africa at this moment in time. And let me state that lariam is medication to fight malaria, where it is a serious disease and has killed approximately 438,000 people in 2015. And also that the advice that I have received is the best possible advice from the Defence Forces. I am not a medical doctor. I've stated that on numerous occasions in this House here. I'm not a medical knowledge to be able to not take their advice.
Is it not extraordinary that the Defence Forces continue to use it when the chairman of Roche, the company that manufactures lariam, has said that its use against malaria is no longer necessary? Dr. Franz Hummer is on the record as saying that science has advanced considerably since lariam was introduced, and that there are more effective anti-malaria drugs available that with reduced side effects. Surely the Defence Forces should be using such drugs. Lariam is now withdrawn from sale in Ireland. The side effects can be very severe and include anxiety, depression, paranoia and suicidal behaviour. Some 50 serving and former members of the Defence Forces have lodged claims against the state, and as Deputy Daly has alluded to, this government is teeing itself up for further claims against the state. Legal proceedings have been served in 37 cases. Surely, Minister, the game is up on lariam.
Thank you very much, Deputy Daly.
You're now a lonely voice, Minister, and I'd like to remind you of the hepatitis C scandals in the 1990s, when the PTSB were alerted in 1991 that a batch of anti-D produced in 1977 might be contaminated. Despite the alert, they continued to use it, and the women were not given any information. The slip-ups were repeated and nothing was done. We're in danger of repeating ourselves about that tragedy. It took a mother, Bridget McCall, to take a case against the state to rectify this. I'll remind you that despite all the digging of heels, the state ended up paying out $1 billion and legal costs associated with 4,500 claims in relation to the Hep C scandal. Minister, this is on your watch. Do you want to ruin the lives of Defence Forces personnel and put them into a similar position as Bridget McCall? Do you want to ruin their lives and indeed your reputation, like the reputation of our present Minister for NAMA, Michael Noonan, has been impacted upon by his treatment of Bridget McCall? Own up to our mistakes, discontinue this failed drug and remove it now.
Deputy O'Sullivan.
Drugs available, and most other armies who are operating in theatre in sub-Saharan Africa use doxycycline or malarial in particular. But have you ever asked the Irish Medicines Board to peer review lariam and the use of lariam for military services around the world, given that it's a number of years since lariam was first introduced, and in recent times the vast majority of militaries operating in those areas have switched away from lariam because of the effects it has on their troops?
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Let me state to the deputies that at this moment in time there are no plans to withdraw lariam from the range of anti-malarial medications available to the Defence Forces. And as I have already indicated, lariam remains in the formulary of medications prescribed by the Medical Corps for Defence Forces personnel on appropriate overseas missions to ensure that our military personnel can have effective protection from the very serious risks posed by malaria. And the use of and the information on the medications is kept under ongoing review. Deputy Smith, you stated there about Roche. My understanding is that Roche pulled out of Ireland for commercial reasons. It was absolutely no other reason other than commercial reasons, and they stated that, I think it's when they pulled out in late 2015 or sometime in 2016 when they pulled out of Ireland. And Deputy Daly, I just want to address the question that you stated that I said there was a large stock of this drug lariam in stock in the Defence Force, and that's the only reason why we're using it. We're using it because this has been prescribed by the Medical Corps of the Irish Defence Forces, and this is the best available advice that I've been given from the Defence Forces, that this is the best available drug and anti-malarial drug available for the use of our members of the Irish Defence Forces.
Thank you, Minister. Moving on to question 41, in the name of Deputy Peter Burke.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. To ask the Minister for Defence to position regarding measures being taken to facilitate a return to service of former members of the Defence Forces, and if he will make a statement on the matter.
The Government is committed to maintaining the establishment of the Permanent Defence Force at 9,500 personnel, comprising of 7,520 Army, 886 Air Corps and 1,094 Naval Service, as stated in the 2015 White Paper on Defence. On an ongoing basis, the manpower requirement for Defence Forces is monitored in accordance with the operational requirements of each of these three services. As there is significant turnover of personnel in the Permanent Defence Forces, targeted recruitment has been and is currently taking place so as to maintain the agreed strength levels. As with other areas of the public service, challenges have arisen in relation to the recruitment and retention of personnel in particular areas of expertise. I am supportive of initiatives beyond the traditional recruitment processes to fill skill gaps in this context. Facilitating the return to service by former members of the Defence Forces is one such initiative. These former members offer the twin advantages of expertise and familiarity with the military. Previously, individual requests have been dealt with on a best-stock needs basis, given the relatively low numbers of such applications. These applications were at officer level. However, this initiative is not without challenges and requires careful consideration. Civilian and military officials are engaged in scoping out appropriate terms and conditions for the re-employment of former officers of the Permanent Defence Forces. In due course, the approach will be discussed with the relevant representative organisations.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy.